Thank you for joining us on the Overcomers Overcoming podcast series, where we profile those who have overcome or those who are in the process of overcoming any life topic. We have three objectives with this podcast series. Our first objective is we want you to know that whatever you're experiencing in life, whatever you're encountering, you're not alone. We want to join you to let you know that we together can help you through whatever challenge you may have that at the time may seem too difficult to be able to overcome. Our second objective is to help you determine with a very confident resolve there are multiple solutions, multiple factors involved in any life encounter. It's a matter of thinking into and thinking through the life situation you are encountering to determine the various options, the various solutions that are available to you. Our third objective is to help you with critical thinking skills. If whatever you're experiencing is a result of a decision you made sometime in the past, such that if you had a life redo, you would make a different decision, we want to help you determine the objective facts and factors to evaluate to help you reach a more informed decision. I'm Ron Cooper, founder of the Cooper Culture. I'm with my wife and business partner, Marty. Together, we are the Cooper Culture, and the Cooper Culture is sponsoring this podcast series. Today, we feature Phil Barth, who expresses to us a way of stress relief through something that we may not think about, but it's expressing gratitude. Expressing gratitude is a way of thinking very positive, and I'm not necessarily an advocate that all the time thinking positive is going to resolve all of our problems. But I am an advocate that thinking positive can bring about some very good things in our life. Phil experienced a heart attack, and through that, the doctor said, you got to relieve your stress, and Phil came up with a way to do just that. Marty, what are some takeaways our listeners can gain from this podcast?
Ron, Phil's message was, like you said, gratitude, but he also said, wake up with a positive thought. Throughout the day, think a positive thought. Say something positive to someone else. He also developed Facebook positive thought quotes. It says your positive thinking, happy person is healing when you have medical issues.
You know, Marty, starting today out thinking about positive about you and thinking about you throughout the day makes me pretty positive. Let's listen to Phil and just learn together. Phil, thank you so much for joining us. Our listeners are going to be very interested in some of your life experience of stress relief. You experienced a heart attack. You have recovered from that. And Phil, there are probably other aspects of your life that are going to be very beneficial to our listeners, just how to cope with and learn from your life experience. So thank you for joining us.
Well, and thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Talk to us a little bit about your heart attack, your background, but it seems as if you have learned to specialize in, if that's not the correct term, but how do you overcome some of the, let's say, past experiences, stress, and so forth?
All right, so let's start with the heart attack. In 2015, I was at summer camp with my son, and it just seemed we had been there year after year after year, and it just seemed like that particular year the hills had gotten taller and I was out of breath a lot. And then a friend of mine had told me maybe 4 or 5 months before that he had had a heart attack, and I thought, people in their early 50s don't have heart attacks. What gives? And he told me all about the symptoms that he went through before the heart attack. And that week at summer camp, I'm starting to check off, you know what? He told me that. He told me that. He told me that. So on Thursday, I felt really lousy, and I went to the first aid room, and they took my blood pressure, and my blood pressure had tanked, which is a sign of a heart attack. And so they sent me to the hospital, and sure enough, I'd had a heart attack. So the next day, they put a couple of stents in, and after that, I got to talk to the heart surgeon. And I thought he was going to do the usual, less saturated fat, watch your sugar intake, cut down on your salt. but what he said was, you need to manage your stress. And it kind of caught me off guard. Looking back, I was a stress junkie. I would work late into the night, and then I'd get up early and drink a bunch of coffee so I could make it through the day, and just taking on all the stress of the world. So he obviously was able to somehow figure that out. So what he said was, you need to every 3 months take 1 week off and unplug. And I said, okay, I'll do it, because my wife was sitting there. So she was going to make sure I did it anyway. So I might as well say I did it. Right. So I started taking 1 week off. 3 months later, I took a week off. And what we did was, we just stayed home and we took little day trips with our youngest son. And we went to the zoo one day, and then the art museum. And at the end of each day, I put out on social media, on Facebook, a list. Here are the great things that happened today. And everybody liked it. And of course, if you get likes on Facebook, that's the greatest thing. So I kept doing it. But I noticed the more I did it, the better I felt, just by focusing on what was good in my life. And so it's been 5.5 years that I've been doing that. And that was the first real key I found to managing stress, was just take the time to appreciate what's good in your life. Don't just go headlong into the day and take all the worries of the world. But when I started taking the time to look for what was good, that really made a change in my stress level and in my overall health. That was the start.
That's wow. We've heard somewhat as some people speak of it almost as a platitude, but when you think of good things, I mean, there is a platitude, but Marty and I know it to be true. You can almost always find what you're looking for. That is, if you're looking for bad things, you can find it. That can sometimes cause stress. But if you're looking for good things, you can almost always find that, albeit you may have to look harder. But there's another axiom that we have learned through life, that many times we can receive things we want by first giving what we want. And I don't know that that makes a lot of sense to you or your listeners, but I'm very intrigued, and I know a lot of our listeners are very intrigued with what you have learned as a stress relief, as expressing gratitude. And have I expressed that correctly, Phil, that by expressing gratitude, you have found that to be a stress reliever?
Oh, absolutely. And you covered a couple of things that I've kind of learned since the heart attack. The one is, you find what you're looking for. And, in 1957, Scientific American published these results of what they call the brain's reticular activating system. And the way it works is, if you close your eyes and think about the color green for a few seconds, when you wake up, your brain is going to find something green. So on a bigger scale, when you tell yourself, I am going to look for the good in life, not the bad, but the good, your brain will over time feed that to you, and that will lower your stress. Now, the other piece of it is, by being grateful, that forces your brain into that, it wires your brain when you find the things you're grateful for. And the way I do it is, in the morning, I spend some time, we've got dogs, and that's the start right there. If you've got dogs, they wake up grateful every morning. And so it's been 8 hours since they last saw you, and they're just so happy to see you, and you're the most wonderful person on earth. And after you feed them, they want to sit on my lap, and you just watch those dogs, how grateful they are, and you can't help but be grateful yourself. And I tell people, you need to be a dog. You feed them dog food and they're grateful. Whatever it is, those dogs are happy. And so they find the good in life. And that's part of my morning routine, is when I spend some time with dogs and kind of calmly think about what was great yesterday, it sets you on the right track. So number one, your mind's going to feed it to you. And number two, by being grateful and really thinking about what you're grateful for. And I like to put myself in the moment. So if I am grateful, for example, I think I'm grateful for my oldest son. Well, instead of just saying, okay, I'm grateful for my oldest son, let's move on, I think I am grateful for my son. And I remember when he was first born, holding him in the hospital, and you just relive that moment for a half a minute. And wow, you're flooded with the right brain hormones, and you're on on your way to having a better day.
That is great to hear. Let me ask you also, Phil, as we express gratitude, is it important or does it help heighten the exhilaration, if that's a term you would endorse? Does it help to explain the why? And what I mean by that, using your example as your son. It's great to be with you, son, or I just love to hold you because, and then fill in the blanks with that part of the why. The reason I'm asking you, Phil, is what have you found has been the real helpful, particularly helpful part of gratitude? My sense is it may be one thing to say, well, thank you, I enjoy your presence, but if we go further to say exactly why it is that a part of expressing an even greater amount of gratitude and having that be stress relief?
Oh yeah, it definitely is. The why is, here I am, on this day, going back, I went from being a husband to a husband and a father, and I had a new role in life. And I had, my wife did all the hard work, right? But between the two of us, we had created a new life. And it was such an awesome privilege and responsibility, and a new why in life, to, a new meaning for my life. So yeah, it's that. It's also and I don't, at the time, right? And I'm holding my son in the hospital, or at the time with the other sons or whatever, you don't think about it necessarily in the why terms. You do afterwards, but you just have this wave that comes over you that says, this is so wonderful. And if you put yourself back in that time, you get that same wave. And then you realize the why, to your point, is because now all of a sudden I'm a dad. I brought this wonderful person into the world, and he's going to make a difference, a positive difference in the world too.
That's great thought. I have heard from various medical people that the people who recover fastest are the ones with the cheerful, upbeat attitude. You seem to be exemplifying that, Phil, that yes, when you find reason to be happy, when you can find reason to find the positive in life, you're almost always going to recover faster. And whether the result of that is the relief of stress or whether it's just the overall demeanor of the body, I'm not sure how it works, but I have heard from several medical people, the more positive you are in attitude, the faster you're going to heal from anything.
I believe that 100%. What I'm reading says, they're finding things like stress can be a contributing factor to things like dementia and things like diabetes, and just, you name it. Stress not managed and the wrong attitude will make you physically ill. And the flip side of that is, if you are ill, if you have a heart attack, having the right attitude can help you recover. Now, I've got to be 100% clear here. When I first had that heart attack, I did not right afterwards have the right attitude. It took me about 3 months of going through recovery, and it wasn't until I started the social media strategy. For 3 months, I would say, why me? Being big old why baby. And I would say, I was just a little bit overweight, and I know people that smoke and they didn't have a heart attack, and I don't smoke. And so I went through that, and it wasn't healthy. But it was when I finally realized, yeah, I had a heart attack, but I'm going to recover, and look at all the wonderful things that are happening around me. That's when things really took off. The recovery got much quicker, and I've been healthy ever since.
Boy, that is great to hear. Are you off medication entirely, or at least not as much as maybe a person might be on medication had they not discovered this, what I'm going to consider a homeopathic method of stress relief?
Yeah, so I am not entirely off, but I am much lower than when I had the heart attack. They had to put me on a lot of blood pressure medicine and a few other things, and I am off of almost all of that. I think the last time my cardiologist, I went to my cardiologist, he said, well, we've got your blood pressure medicine down to the granny dose. So he said, it's about the dose you'd need, maybe an 80-year-old granny would need. So he said, you're doing really good. So yeah, that has helped. They've been able to take me off some pills, not 100%, but it has certainly helped. And again, I think that's you could call it homeopathic. You can call it the positive mental attitude. I think that all works together.
Yeah, well, that is great news. Phil, I'm going to ask you on behalf of the listener who may have had recently or could be in the presence, if they were in the presence of a doctor who might say, you are a high candidate, you, the person that the doctor is referring to, are a candidate for a heart attack. That person might be thinking, well, I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't do any of the traditional things that are associated with heart attacks, much like you. But the doctor may say your history of blood pressure and the diagnosis may be, you're under stress all the time. You're just operating at about 938 miles an hour, at least process and so forth. For the person who might be facing the same kind of situation, how would you help them? What would you say is something that they need to start on to reduce that stress level?
So first off, don't kid yourself like I did. I thought, well, because I'm of this age and because we don't have any direct cardio history in the family, then this can't possibly happen to me. Well, two things, and this is why I'll probably never be 100% off the medicine. We didn't have any heart attack history, but we did have blood pressure and cholesterol issues. So you can't fight hereditary, and don't kid yourself about, well, I've got this going from my mother's side or whatever. If you've got that handed down to you, just accept that it is what it is and listen to your doctor. The second thing is, setting that aside, there are things you can do, and stress management is a big one. And so first thing in the morning, you need to think about how you're going to have a good low stress day. And there's a few things, right? You can say, I'm not going to stress out about things over which I have no control. And the classic example is if you're in traffic and somebody cuts you off and you just start ranting and raving, how dare they do that? And number one, they probably didn't even realize it. And number two, even if they did, you can't do anything about it. So you need to kind of let that kind of stress go. And one of the tricks I've found to letting stress with other people go is, and it's Brene Brown who I heard this question from originally, is you need to ask yourself, is this person doing the best that they can and doing what they think is right? And when you accept the fact that people are not out to get you, they are not out to make your life miserable, they don't want to hurt you, and 99% of the time that's the case, then you start cutting people slack and you lower the stress. That's one piece of advice. The second one is you need to be really careful about what you put into your brain. And there was a study done about 10 years ago by a couple of psychologists from Harvard University. And what they did was they divided the people into two groups. And the first group, they gave 3 minutes of what they called bad news, just the normal, how you turn on the news first thing in the morning. If it's national news, it's bad news. It's about the pandemic. It's about, whatever. It's not good news. So half the group got that. The other half got solution focused news, not all happy unicorns and rainbows and all that, but solution focused news. 8 hours later, they asked both groups, how was your day? And the group that started with just 3 minutes of bad news was 27% more likely to say they had a bad day. So it is critically important to start your day off on the right foot. And I like to read in the morning. I like to play with my dogs in the morning, but and it only takes 3 minutes to get that day started off on the right foot. It's such a powerful thing, the way you start your day. And it only takes 3 minutes. So that would be my advice. If you do those things, you're not going to win every day, but you're going to win a lot of them.
How are you with stress? Do you know what your blood count is? Do you know where you are on the stress scale? It's a self-assessment, but where are you? Are you able to very effectively manage stress? Are you putting positive into your mind? Are you starting out your day with a positive attribute? Are you looking at those things over which you do have control? There are a lot of factors in your life that are stress causers. Are you aware of what they are, how you can manage stress? Are you aware of what your risk is of a heart attack? There's sometimes we tend to minimize, marginalize those factors that are causing stress in our life. We may in fact be at high risk of some medical anomaly, heart attack, or otherwise. It's time to take a pause to assess where we are and get into a form of stress relief. Phil has some great recommendations for all of us to consider. Let's get with somebody and let's be proactive with people. That is very well said wisdom in what you just said. We have found that to be true as well, that you start your day off well, and again in the context that we have found it to be a life truism, that if you look for good, you will find it, and the reverse. And if you start the day reading a very positive book, you talk with other people in very positive tones. There are some of us who are the type A's and so forth when we're in traffic, to have somebody get out in front of us, to get to the destination faster than us. We have to get over that kind of stuff. But Phil, what you're saying is very truthful. We know that to be true. And sometimes it's hard to break a habit. I'm curious, you were probably a type person who traveled, you'd slow down to 700 miles an hour kind of thing. Were you just a constant fast-paced person all of your life, the stress that way?
For most of it. There was a period where I slowed down, but I didn't learn my lesson. So not long after our first two kids were born, I think they were probably age 5 and 2. And so what I would do, they called us in. Our company got bought out, and they called me and they said, look, we want you to stay with the company until we move everything to Tennessee, and then we'll give you a real nice severance package. And by the way, you won't have much work to do. So, just be available if we need something. So suddenly I switched from being that type A, hard driving, I'm going to get the job done and work all the hours and Saturdays and Sundays if I need to. And so I would take the kids to McDonald's once a week. And before I took the older on to kindergarten and the younger on to daycare. And we would sit there at McDonald's and just eat. And it was this calm time. I'm like, these kids are really cool. And I really don't need to be working that long when I could be spending time and enjoying my kids. So I took a break from the type A. Well, long story short, what happened was by the end of the time when they were going to close down the company that I was with, they said, you know what, we found you a job with the new company. So come over here and work on this project. And then I kind of ramped up to the top type A over time. I will say that as much as possible, I made time for the kids' baseball games and scout events and so on. But yeah, I was type A, and it wasn't until the heart attack that I made the change for good. And, there's something about hearing a doctor say, you had small arteries blocked this time, but there's this thing called the widowmaker. And guess what happens if your widowmaker gets blocked? I said, well, the context clues tells me on that one, right? So that forced the change. What I'm trying to do now for people is show them how you can change without having to go through the heart attack.
No, that's great advice. Now, in the context of numbers, I'll call it that, it sounds as if, Phil, you're saying that if your blood pressure is high and your cholesterol is high, the numbers right there alone may tell you that you're in a high-risk category. Is that the state you were in?
That is absolutely the state that I was in. I took blood pressure medicine from about 40, and the doctor said, your blood pressure is starting to creep up, and I'm 40 years old. And I said, oh, I don't think I need medicine yet. So I called my mom and I said, does Dad take blood pressure medicine? And she said, yeah, he has ever since he was about 40. I said, okay, well, that tells me that this blood pressure thing isn't a passing thing. So yeah, it was something where I needed to watch it, and I did, but I, I'll be honest, I didn't. Some days I would forget to take my medicine, and that's never good. I'm much more uh, religious about taking my medicine every single day. You got to control the blood pressure, and you got to control the cholesterol are two big ones. If you do that, then you're in pretty good shape. And every time I've gone and gotten my blood checked, and I get it once a year, and every time I've gone for an EKG with my cardiologist, the numbers have come back real good. It's a combination. It's a little bit diet too, and I make sure I walk and get my exercise every day. But a big part of it is the mental and the stress management. It's all tied together.
Yes, well, I can definitely understand that. Now, you mentioned it took you maybe 3 months or so to get into the habit of the stress reduction and the daily gratitude and so forth. Are you in what, maybe a daily habit of blogging or whatever it is that form of stress relief? In other words, have you worked yourself into a routine that you have found to be very comfortable, that this is stress relief, whatever this is, blogs or whatever? Our listeners are very interested in knowing what the method is and how long did it take you to get into this routine?
So for me, it is first thing in the morning, posting on Facebook great things that happened yesterday. And hopefully I took a picture of it too, because people like to see pictures. So if I was playing with a puppy, they want to see that. But every day I just list the things I remember from the day before, and it goes out on social media. Normally first thing in the morning, sometimes it happens after lunch, but every day that goes out on social media. And the thing that I've really enjoyed as much as everything else is other people have started doing it. And so they said, you know what, Phil does this, and I'm going to try it. And so then they post what's great in their life. And I just think that that's so cool, because now they're starting to get the benefit of it too. And that's every single day on Facebook. And let's be honest, Facebook can be a negative place depending on, who you're friends with and what they're posting. You can get a lot of negativity in Facebook. So I like, and I focus my Facebook friends, the ones I put at the top of my feed, are the ones who are positive, are the ones who are sharing, it's my niece sharing pictures of her daughter and her little baby son. So you can put positivity out there on your feed, and you can also share it with others. And that's why I do it every single day. Just a simple list. And that's the other thing. It's not like, we don't all get to climb Mount Everest, right? We don't all get to win the World Series, but there are little great things in life. It can be a quick conversation. It can be watching an old movie with my wife. It can be making banana milkshakes, you name it, just little things that really, when you take the time to stop and appreciate them, just really make the day that much better.
That's a lot of wisdom in what you just said, Phil. There is another action that said never underestimate the good you can do by just reaching out to somebody with something. Part of this podcast series is we know everybody has a story somebody needs to hear. And I believe in the context of what you are passing on to us is that never underestimate the value of something positive you can do for or say to somebody. It's going to have a positive impact on someone. And in the context of getting what you're giving, when we give out something that positive, we frequently receive something positive from what we're giving.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it makes me feel good just doing it. And I've had times when I ran into a friend at the grocery store. And so I'll put a line and tag them on Facebook. Hey, I ran into Joe at the grocery store and we had a 2-minute conversation. And they're like, oh, hey, thanks for tagging me. I was like, but you understand, it was really enjoyable. It was 2 minutes, but it was something that made both of our days better. And that's why I put you out there. And you tag them. And as often as I can, I like to call out the people who are making my life happier and the people who are making my life better.
That is great advice, great wisdom. Phil, I want to thank you for sharing. Thank you on behalf of our listeners for sharing, and we are happy to know that you're recovering well from your heart attack and you're passing forward those very positive benefits of what you have learned from life. And again, passing on gratitude to others always has a positive benefit. Thank you for sharing that part of your life with our listeners.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right, have a great day. We look forward to continuing the dialogue with you and following you on Facebook.
All right. You guys have a great day too.
Let's discuss stress, its effect on all of us. Some of the things we can do to marginalize stress, we tend sometimes to just write it off and marginalize those things that are causing stress in our life. Marty and I are working with some people who are at the point of life of being inundated, overwhelmed with stress. They have factors going on in their life that they need to reduce, get rid of if at all possible. But there's some situations in life where the best we'll be able to do is manage stress. So it's a matter of how do we deal with stress. Phil has some great reminders of things that we can do to reduce stress. One of those things being start today with something positive. The more we write, the more proactive we are in reading, the more proactive we are in listening to the positive, the greater the likelihood we're going to have a positive attitude. That positive attitude can frequently carry into life where we are taking on some sort of a challenge, a problem, whatever it is, and the greater the positive attributes that we have around us, the greater the positive thinking people, the greater the positive mental attitude we have, the greater the likelihood we will be able to think through the various situations that are causing stress, causing us to think negative. Greater the likelihood of us thinking positive, the greater likelihood is we will have positive friends that surround us. We want to be surrounded with positive thinking people. It's known that any ailment people have, let's just say in the context of medical, it's a well-known fact, documented. The greater the positive attitude we have, the greater the healing that is going to occur in our bodies. We also know that just being in the presence of a positive thinking person, most of us would rather be in the presence of positive thinking people than those who are negative. It's just enlightening. We just feel that when we can see a smile on a person's face, when they feel they have reason to be positive, that we want to be around those kind of people. I'm not so Pollyannic to think that positive thinking is going to take us through everything, but I am a firm believer, Marty and I together, that as we think of positive things, as we look for those positive, we can find them. Everything in life has something positive in it, but the more negative we are, the greater the likelihood is we're going to look for and find something negative. My encouragement to you is that we find those positive people. We help them to think positive and surround ourselves with positive thinking people. Then the greater the likelihood is that we're going to be able to work our way through any life encounter. Phil did that with his heart attack, reduced stress. Something seems relatively simple, but the greater the propensity we have to identifying and looking for something positive in life and others, the greater the likelihood that we're going to make someone else feel good, happy about themselves. Everybody can benefit through coaching. There's some people who have things done and said to them in life that are causing stress, are causing them to doubt themselves. It's a source of limiting beliefs. Everyone can benefit from coaching. Marty and I are life coaches certified through the John Maxwell Enterprise. We can help people we can help people identify and help them think through the various things that are keeping them from living at their full potential. Let's schedule a 30-minute complimentary coaching session, and that will help you determine if either Marty or I is the right person to help you identify anything that is keeping you from living at your full potential. Any of those stress identifiers that are causing stress in your life that may be causing you to doubt yourself, causing anything that is a limiting belief. But let's work together and let's identify those things that are keeping you possibly from being at your full potential. We hope we can warrant a 5-star rating with this podcast series. We hope you will want to share and engage with your Facebook friends, your LinkedIn connections, your Instagram community, and your Twitter community. The more we share, the greater likelihood is that we're going to develop a community of people who actually want to reach out and have a very positive impact on others. And as we share our life experiences, the good, the bad, the things that have worked well, things that have not worked well, the greater likelihood that we will be a very positive influence on other people and will be a very positive motivation to others to help them through any stress situations they may be enduring in life. Let's work together. Let's share. We look forward to working with you.